What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today I want to talk about the reversal format in Keyforge, and I want to talk about selecting a deck. Now, in Keyforge, there are two formats that we've seen quite a lot so far, two that we've seen in Vault Tours. Sealed format, you get a deck, or a couple of decks, you open it, or them, you play with it, or one of them. Cool. And then there's Archon, where you choose which deck you go through a tournament with. Well, Reversal is a very weird format, whereby you take a deck, and instead of playing with that deck every round, you play against that deck every round. Every single round, you sit down opposite your opponent, you swap decks, and you play with those decks. Now, you get your deck back at the end of the round and go to the next round. So instead of playing with the same deck every round, you play against the same deck every round. How weird is that? The answer is kind of cool. Now, the reason I'm thinking about this at the moment is because there are a couple of store championships coming up in the UK that I might be able to go to that are of the reversal format. So all of a sudden, I'm thinking, right, I need to have a look at a good reversal deck, and I need to figure out how to pick a reversal deck. And then I was like, well, hang on a second. If I'm putting this much time and effort and thought into the reversal format, I should make a video about it, shouldn't I? So, what we're looking for here is the worst possible deck. And obviously, you can look at ranking. So this is roughly what my ToyWiz looks at the moment. ToyWiz, really good site I use a lot because it compiles at rankings. So I can sort my decks by SAS or by ToyWiz or whatever and see what the worst deck is. And that's a decent starting point. But you'll notice, of course, that different rankings rank them differently. So if I'm looking at a kind of all-around bad deck, for instance, then one of the decks that should come up for me is INGMAR BAZAAR Moderator. That is a deck that should be a bad deck, or at least among my worst. But I would not play this deck in a reversal format. And let's go through why. If we have a look at the logo suite, we've got two Wild Wormhole, which allows you to essentially play a card out of your house turn because you just play the top card of your deck. We've got two Library of Babel and a Mother, which give fairly decent draw power. And then we've got three Ganymede Archivist and a Random Access Archives, which give me pretty good options for archiving. And then, of course, I can archive cards ready to use later. And then that's going to give me a bit of an advantage in that way. So I'm probably not liking that. That looks a bit too good. And then similarly, over in Mars, I've got quite a lot of options for cheeky damage. I've got a copy of Phosphorus Stars to stun creatures. I've got two Orbital Bombardment, which do cheeky damage. And I've got Mothership Support. So I'm going to be able to take out some creatures here. Similarly, I've got Zyzzyx the Many, that is at least potentially a very big creature if you can get it going. We got Quixlix Plague Master, that when it fights or reaps deals 3 damage to each human creature. And that could be pretty good against some decks. And then, of course, we've got 2 copies of Soft Landing, which lets me play creatures or artifacts ready and then use them on the same turn. If we have a look at Shadows, there's way too much stealing in this deck. There's 2 copies of Noddy the Thief that can steal. There's an old Bruno who can capture free amber when you play it. And there's Too Much to Protect, which is one of the best emergency non-reaping cards in the game, or non-forging cards. Stops your opponent forging a key. So even though this looks like it's got a fairly low SAS score, I can't be playing this deck. Also, in my testing of this deck, it has performed way better than an SAS score of 70 should lead you to imagine. So, with that example out the way, what are we thinking of? Now, this is not an exhaustive list. Think about it as a little bit of a checklist to start with. But the one thing you cannot have in a reversal deck is one of those emergency you will not forge a key cards. Too much to protect, effervescent principle, doorstep to heaven. These are cards that can take away, steal, or make your opponent lose a lot of amber straight away. It is really good at emergency stopping your opponent forging a key. You can't give that to your opponent. It's too good for them when you're about to forge a key. Similarly, something like Miasma, which can buy you a turn, is not a great card to put in a reversal deck. So I think the emergency you shall not forge cards have to not be present in a reversal deck, and certainly seeing too much to protect in INGMAR BAZAAR Moderator makes me instantly go, oh, I don't think that's a good reversal deck. But similarly, anything which can give you really good answers to a particular strategy shouldn't be present in a reversal deck. So board wipes would be another thing which I'd be wanting to keep away. So something like Unlocked Gateway, Key to this, Gateway to this. I don't want to see those cards in my reversal deck, because then I'm giving it to my opponent, and any time I can build up a really good board of characters, my opponent can play Gateway to this, and then all of a sudden I lose all of my creatures. And maybe building up a nice battlefield full of creatures to just reap is the way I'm going to win with my opponent's terrible deck. You cannot give your opponent a silver bullet answer. Similarly, any really good artifact hate, something like Barehanded or Gorm of Orm, which can just come along and get rid of artifacts straight away, is not something that we really want to see here. So the point here is, do not give your opponent any, what I like to call silver bullet cards. Cards which are just, I can wreck a particular strategy. Don't give it to them, ladies and gentlemen. Just don't give it to them. Now, what you also want to try avoiding is giving them lots of powerful creatures. So let's say, for argument's sake, I've got a Brobnar deck with multiple copies of Troll. Troll is an 8 power, and when it reaps, it heals. Now, the reason this is something that should worry you in a reversal deck is because reversal decks should be full of bad decks with no great synergy, no really good cards. So what you're gonna see is essentially a bunch of kind of rubbish creatures that don't synergize with the rest of your deck. Which means something like Troll is going to be absolutely able to just run through them. Now, if there's a bad deck and there's one Troll in there, it is nothing like having a bad deck with a copy of Doorstep to Heaven, which can completely wreck a strategy, or Unlocked Gateway that can wreck a battlefield and lead to victory. But if you give your opponent too many powerful creatures, they're going to be able to play the game whereby, oh, look at all of your lovely creatures. Shame if someone took them out. Now, the other thing we need here is no obvious strategies. So, Bad Penny generally is great in a reversal deck. She's a 1-power creature that goes to your hand when destroyed, but doesn't have any play abilities. Bad Penny is a bad card on her own, and I stand by that. But with Seeker Needle, Bad Penny is a phenomenal card. Because Seeker Needle, you deal 1 damage to a creature. If it destroys that creature, you gain an amber. So Seeker Needle with any 1-power creature is pretty good. Seeker Needle with Bad Penny is great. Because you play Bad Penny down, destroy it with Seeker Needle, gain an amber. Play it down again, but she's exhausted. Next turn, you reap with Bad Penny to gain an amber, destroy it with Seeker Needle to gain a second amber, put it back down. And the 1 Bad Penny Seeker Needle combo gives you 2 more amber on every Shadow's turn. Now, I do not have time to go through every possible combo in every possible Keyforge deck. That would be impossible. Literally impossible. Okay, maybe if I had infinite knowledge and infinite time, and you guys didn't mind a video that was several days long, but that's a bit unrealistic. My point here is, and this is the biggest piece of advice I can give you for the reversal format, Know your deck. When you go to a reversal format, you should know your reversal deck just as well as you know your Archon deck that you take to an Archon tournament. You should know all the good things about it and all the bad things about it. You should know every weakness and how to exploit that weakness. You should know the creatures in that deck that you can keep on the board and the creatures that have to be taken out right now. You have the opportunity to have perfect knowledge about your opponent's deck because it's your deck. You should know which creatures you have to take out, which strategies it's weak to. You should know everything about the deck. And if that deck has too many good combos, don't play with it. And this is the biggest piece of advice I can give you for the reversal format. Play as many games as you can with every deck that you own and pick the one that just doesn't work. And as a side note, your reversal deck probably isn't going to include Shadows. Shadows has way too much stealing. This I thought was a bit obvious, but I'm chucking it in here just in case. Do not give your opponent Amber control. By which I mean ways to steal and capture Amber. We talked about this at the beginning of the video when I looked at INGMAR BAZAAR Moderator, but let's be super clear. Any card which is good at capturing or stealing Amber, do not put it in your opponent's reversal deck, which is your reversal deck. So here's an example of a deck that I am highly considering taking to the reversal tournaments. Now, it is Maximiliano, AMUDASTON, THANE. And it's not my lowest SAS deck, but it is my weakest deck according to the ToyWiz ranking. But more importantly, I played this in a sealed 3-round tournament at the Birmingham Vault Tour. I went 0-3. I forged a total of 2 keys over 3 games. I told my friend, I'm like, oh, I forged 2 keys. And they went, oh, so you almost won. I'm like, no, in 3 games. Yeah, it's a bad deck. I was completely outclassed in every single game, and I felt like the deck had no answers. So I don't pick this deck because it's got low ratings. By SAS, it is not my weakest deck. I've got several weaker. Although, to be fair, by ToyWiz, I don't. This is my weakest one by ToyWiz. But the point is, I've played multiple games with this deck, and the deck sucks. 74 SAS is not terrible, but if we have a look through the deck, there's basically no Amber control, like, at all. We've got Lash of Broken Dreams. There's 2 copies of Cutthroat Research, but Cutthroat Research only lets you steal Amber if your opponent has 8 or more, and even then it's only 2, so you put them down to 6, and they're probably able to forge anyway. Which happened basically every time I was able to get that rolling. And Lash of Broken Dreams doesn't work every single time. There is literally no artifact control whatsoever. There is no answer to any artifact at all. Not even a little bit. Now, to be fair, the thing that makes me nervous about this deck, 16 bonus Amber. That is not bad, if I'm honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. That is a decent amount. But this deck has no answers to anything. And the other thing is, when I look at this deck, I know the weaknesses. I know that the way it can basically win is by getting Professor Sutterkin out and drawing a whole bunch of cards with logos, so I stop them doing so. I know that Uxlix the Zookeeper can be horrific for, you know, just getting rid of all of my creatures into their archives, so I take it out the second it hits the board. Now, there is one big issue with this deck, and that is that there are 2 copies of Misery Exploit, gain 1 Amber for each damaged enemy creature, and there is a copy of Mars Needs Amber. Each damaged enemy non-Mars creature captures 1 Amber from their own side, and you can then destroy them to get the Amber. But both of those cards rely on me having a bunch of damaged creatures. But I know that going in because I played a bunch of games with this deck. So what I do is I make sure I don't have any damaged creatures. And if I do, I self-destruct them. I take them out by throwing them at my opponent's creatures in a fight, or I use any cheeky damage cards there are to take out my own creatures so my opponent cannot take advantage of Misery Exploit and Mars Needs Amber. But here's my last thought for today on the reversal format. Your worst deck might not be that bad. I don't know if I've got any truly horrific decks. Because even the ones I've shown you here, you know, the deck which I think is the worst deck I've opened, still got an SAS score of 73. It's right in the middle SAS-wise. According to ToyWiz's rankings, anything below 72 is in the bottom 10%, and none of my decks are below 72. So maybe I have been lucky? But maybe I've been cursed. Maybe I've just got a whole bunch of mediocre decks. I don't know. It's kind of fun to think about. Any questions you've got on the reversal format, any tips you've got, chuck them in the comment section down below. It's a really fun format, but you have got to pick your deck as seriously as you would if you were playing in Archon. Go nuts, be nice, and then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about Keyforge and whatever other games take my fancy. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.